Okay, so I'm sure people would rather see me do my Transformer work, and I get that, and that's coming. This was just kind of a trial situation to see if I actually could do this. So this is actually coloring Grail and Darkseid of DC Comics fame, which you may or may not be familiar with, but they're pretty cool characters. And Grail is a relatively new character, so I wanted to draw her, and figured I might as well draw Darkseid at the same time. That being said, I always start with the skin tones. Even if it doesn't make up much of the character, I just feel like if I start with the skin tone and I nail that, everything else will kind of fall into place. And obviously that has no merit whatsoever. It's just how I approach everything. It's how I approach Transformers. Actually, with Transformers, I might do the face last. But with human characters, I always start with the flesh tones, and I always start with the face. And I also work light to dark after I get my base color. And I'm not like, I don't have any training. I don't have any, like, I'm not an artist, so to speak. So, like, I know you're not supposed to shade and highlight with just higher and darker tones of the same color. Like, I know that's kind of frowned upon in terms of how you're supposed to do business. But it's how I do business. So, right or wrong, it's what I do, and I know I've gotten a little better. Like, sometimes I add different colors for highlights at the end, which I think we see here. But for the most part, I just use darker and lighter tones of the same color. Every now and then I get a little fancy and think outside the box, but for the most part, I just do the same. So moving on to the cape and kind of, her major outfits. At this point, I pretty much work from the biggest colors to the smallest colors, meaning in terms of the amount of space that they take up on the piece. And I don't know how to use Photoshop all that well, which is what I color on. I also color with a mouse, I'll have you know. I don't have like a tablet or anything. I know I should. I know I'm an idiot. I get it. I've just always used a mouse, and it's just what I've gotten used to using. It does make it more complicated. It does make it more of a pain, but I've gotten so used to it where I really don't notice. So I go in and I kind of, color each piece on a separate layer, and I do it up, and then I go back with the lasso tool and I select every space that's not supposed to be that color, like I'm doing right now, and then I'll delete that, and then I'll use another layer underneath to kind of fill in the blanks. And as you move forward, starting with your largest colors and moving on to your smaller colors, you just end up filling in less blanks as you move along. That little piece that was on her hip over there that we've already passed, like, that was an error. I make tons of errors in every piece that I do. I'm sure that's not common either, but I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to technology, so I struggle. I struggle a fair bit. And a lot of times I'll color on the wrong layer, or I'll erase a piece I'm not supposed to erase, or whatever. And I know there's like masks and all this other kind of stuff that you can use that makes it easier for you. I just don't know how to use it. I'm self-taught with the exception of a few YouTube videos. So Photoshop is one of those programs where you and I can do the same thing, and we can both do it 1,000 different ways. And this is just the way that I know how to do it. And it's not that I'm against learning new stuff. If anyone wants to give me some tips or pointers or whatever, that's fine. It's just like I am definitely a creature of habit. I know I wanted most of these colors to be a bit darker than normal, than what they normally might be, because I had the background plan in my head where I wanted like this red sky and this like crack of lightning happening. So I knew that my light was going to be coming from left to right, and I knew that it was going to be a bit darker than normal, and that's how I kind of approached the whole thing. So the light source is fairly consistent. Sometimes I'll throw shadows, into places, and highlights into places where they wouldn't necessarily be, just because I think it'll end up looking more dynamic, for better or for worse. That's what I do. I found it a bit challenging to separate the color of the gloves and stuff from her skin tone. I'm still not sure that I did that 100%. I think it should have been more blue than gray, and her skin tone is more gray than blue, but it ends up kind of being washed out, even though I promise you I chose 2 different colors, and I even used them on different spectrums, but they just ended up being similar. And yeah, there's me trying to find the right color. I always do that little thing. I don't know if you see those little colors down to the left. Like, I set up my palette, which I know you can do up in your swatches, but like I said, I'm not too good at this stuff. So I set up a little palette down there. Palette is not the right word, I don't think. Doesn't matter. And then I just, it was like a quick reference point to use all my colors. See, I'm doing it right there with the red. So those are going to be my highlights, and those are going to be my shadows, and I can use them as quick references with the little eyedrop tool to grab the color I want when I want it. I like doing lips on the ladies, so to speak. I like putting in a little like white reflection at the end. Kind of, I don't know what it is about it. It's rewarding. I use the smear tool from time to time to do tight little lines like that to kind of get the darker colors into the middle. I try to use it sparingly, but sometimes I end up using it more than others. I do kind of feel like it's a bit of a cheat, but at the end of the day, you know, I don't think anybody looks at any of this stuff and like really questions how it was done and wonders if any of it was like kind of cheating, you know. So I guess I just get over it. I struggle with cloth too, like that kind of stuff. It eats me up. Her cape as well. But I think the cape ended up looking alright, honestly. And this is me going back in, selecting all that can't be there and deleting it. I know that it would make it easier to really isolate each section, especially when I'm going back to highlight, because then I can just select that section and highlight it and shade it, and it would make it easier for me. But, you know, I'm always like working against the clock, and, you know, it's very difficult to get the time to do this kind of stuff. And when I do reviews and stuff, it doesn't take much time, but when I do the art stuff, it ends up like kind of putting a strain on everybody, the kids, and because it's very time consuming, and I'm kind of locked into one place, and I kind of get in the zone. I am happy that I figured out how to do this screen capture thing. It's on QuickTime. I didn't even know that anybody can do it, and I thought I was going to have to buy an app and everything else, but luckily I didn't have to do that. So this is coming down the home stretch, and then we do these effects. I like doing these effects. I'm kind of known for doing them, like these glowing effects. It's not that hard to do. It's just, you know, having a brighter source at the inside and the darker source at the outside, and going over the black lines with the color you intend to highlight. In the comics, she doesn't have eyes. Like, she doesn't have, like, you know, like the iris and stuff. Like, she just has like a flat red. But I was like, man, I'm going to make them glowing, and I'm going to make like proper eyeballs, and I kind of smear them, the edges of the eyeballs a little bit to soften them. So like they're there but not there. And I think it worked. Just isolating the hair. I do always color the hair completely isolated because it makes it easier to do this, where I put in my highlights and then I go back over with some darker tones, and that comes out really well. That's a method that I feel like I have locked down. Everything else is pretty much a work in progress all the time. So yeah. This is a thing I do also at the end, where I adjust all the layers to get the exact kind of saturation and tone that I want for each, and 9 times out of 10 I end up darkening it. This is selecting all the different layers and kind of adding my highlights. Like, I'm going to have this pink crack of lightning coming through, so I want the lightning to reflect off of her a fair bit, so I had to go back in and isolate certain places and add a little bit of a lighting effect on everything to kind of really secure her into the environment. It works out sometimes better than others, but I think in this particular scenario it worked out pretty well. I think it makes it believable, and I'll show the finished piece here at the end when the final pictures. I'm going to be doing more of this stuff fairly often, since I know how to do it now, and I will do a Transformer piece soon, I promise. But I hope you dig it. If not, just skip it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.